All right. Well, hey, everybody. This is Mike Papacoda with the Bowtie Sales Guy. As always, I'm here with my good friend, Robb Ryerse. See, Rob, how's it going today?
Doing well, Mike. You sell anything this week?
Yeah, I'm always out there selling something. So that's what we
Fantastic.
always be closing, right?
Oh, yep,
ABC. So
exactly.
yeah, so I'm glad to be back here. For those of you that caught the first episode of the Bowtie Sales Guy podcast, welcome back. And for those of you that are joining for the first time, welcome. We're definitely excited to have you listening today. As we mentioned in our first podcast, we're just two friends with about 30 years of combined sales experience who for several years have talked about doing a podcast so we could share with other sales professionals what we've learned during our time in sales. And so that is why we are here. If you would like to interact with us, you can find us here on our Facebook page, Bowtie Sales Guys. And you can also find us on Spotify. You can find us on the Apple Podcast, and really anywhere where you get your podcasts. We are probably going to be there. And then each week, what we're going to do is share a big idea with you, share some stories, and talk about what we've learned. And then we're going to wrap it up by giving you a tip that you can put into practice today. Now,
Today.
Rob, I'm excited to talk about this particular topic in our
Yeah,
big idea.
that's right. Mike, before we jump into it, though, let me ask you a
Yeah,
question. I'm going to throw you a curveball here at the top.
throw me a curveball.
What's the craziest thing you've ever sold? Like, what's the in all of your sales experience? Like,
Oh, man.
what's something crazy that you sold?
I think one of I wouldn't call it crazy, but it was interesting is when I was in a kind of in a gap in between jobs and I went to work selling advertising in movie theaters, which was really,
Yeah.
because I listen. I know we need ads, but I hate going to the movie theaters and seeing ads. I'm like, I just paid you $19 or $20 to get in here, and now I need to look at ads, and I'm just like, not for me. But sell it anyhow, and so that I guess that's the craziest or most interesting thing that I've ever sold. What about you?
Yeah, I think probably I spent the summer after college, before I got married, doing sales, and I would go, I look back on it now, and I'm sure this was some kind of like multi-level marketing scheme that I was like caught up in, but I would go and I would take like children's books to businesses and I would leave them there for a couple of days so that either customers or people, employees that worked at the businesses could look at them and they can order them. And then I would come back and pick them up and deliver the books that had been ordered. And so it was a matter of like walking into small businesses and like convincing the owner to let me leave a stack of books in his office.
Huh.
It was, but the crazy thing was it was like a huge territory. And so every day I was driving, like it seemed like hours all over
Yeah.
northeastern Pennsylvania and even up into central New York. It was nuts. Yeah. So I
So
like people. People sell crazy things, right?
Now, so listen, my first job was, I think I was 16, and I found this job in the paper. It's back when people read the papers to get jobs, and I showed up, and it was just this bank of tables with phones and a little card with it had a number, and it was 000102. We were selling newspaper subscriptions, and so we're boiler room, 16 years old, and I'm doing it, making sales. A week later, I show up, doors locked, nobody's there, never got a paycheck. So that was
Well,
welcome to
someday, and
sales.
here, I mean, here's the big tease for you. But someday I will. I'll tell you my newspaper subscription selling story. But that's not a story for today. That's a story for another day. Today we've got a big idea to talk about.
We do. And the big idea, and I don't know why I'm so excited to talk about this, but it's sales slumps.
Oh,
And I think you and I have spent a lot of time in cigar lounges and bars just talking about how hard it can be in sales. And I think if you've been in sales any amount of time, you have likely found yourself in a sales slump, right? Everything you do is wrong. Everything you say is wrong. You cannot find your way to a sale. and it's just one of those things where it gets soul crushing, and you start to question, am I in the right business? Can I support my family? Can I support myself? And it just is this downward spiral to the point where you're just like, you're paralyzed. And I know you and I have talked about this because we've both experienced it, but when we were out making calls and visiting with clients, and you'd go and you'd talk to 10 of them and you'd get all these no's, and you pull into the next parking lot and you can't even open the door to get out of the car because you don't want to face another no. I mean, it's again, paralyzing. And so, I mean, have you experienced that, Rob? Have you been kind of in that same place?
Absolutely. I remember there was a sales job that I had at a company where I came in and learned it pretty quickly, and things really kind of took off. And man, my first year, I crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. And, you might remember this, Mike, because you were about, 4 or 6 months ahead of me at the very same company. And you had crushed your first year there as well. And
I did.
Yeah. I mean, we were both doing.
Didn't make a whole lot of friends, but definitely crushed it.
Well, you made me as a friend.
That's true. I came out with one friend. Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, but the second year, I don't know if it was the sophomore slump or what it was, but it was like I could not manufacture a sale to save my life. And the tough thing that had happened is that my budget, my quota, the expectations had risen as a result of how I did that first year, and now I'm struggling to even keep my head above water, struggling to be able to make it through. It felt so often like I'm not gonna make a sale. And what happens when that, I remember, it was so defeating to go into work. And there's this thing, and I'm sure at some point in this podcast we'll talk about, customers like to buy from salespeople that are confident. Not cocky, not arrogant, but confident. And there is, customers have a way of being able to smell the desperation on a salesperson, right? And I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced this. If when you're buying a house, you're buying a car, you're you're looking at the big screen TV at the big box store, and that salesperson sidles up to you, and it's you can smell it on them that if they don't make this sale, they're desperate, and that desperation just comes out, and I could feel that in myself. It was so discouraging and disheartening. And I think this is one of those reasons why there's kind of that, that old trope of salespeople changing jobs every 9 months. 'Cause you do well, and then things begin to slow down, and all of a sudden you're looking for the door. You're eyeing the back door, thinking about how you can get out of this and move on to something else. It's a hard thing.
Because one of the things when you're in a slump, you find yourself on Indeed looking at, okay, maybe I'm in the wrong profession. Maybe, should I go back to the service industry where I don't have to worry about making sales? And yeah, it is a hard profession, and the sales slump is a real thing. Just like when you see a batter in baseball, when they're in a slump, there are things that you can do though that are going to help you to get out of that slump. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But, one of the things, Rob, that I noticed, especially when I was in sales leadership, is that when a rep is in a slump, or when I was myself in a slump, we start to do things that move us away from making the sale or having to talk to our customers. We do a lot of busy work and a lot of emails, and we start to make ourselves feel busy, but we're really not doing anything to move a sale forward. And when the day is done, you may have felt like you've done a lot, but at the bottom line, you still haven't moved closer to making a sale. And so, Rob, I know you have a couple of tips for us today on some things that we can do to help us break that sales slump. So what are a few of those things?
Yeah, well, I think first of all is remembering what makes a good salesperson. A few years back, I think it was about 5 years ago, HubSpot put out an article where they had done some research on across different industries and different companies, what's the common denominator for the rock star salespeople? What do all of these salespeople have in common? And it wasn't product knowledge. It wasn't question asking. It wasn't like all of the stuff we might think of. Like the number one thing that rock star salespeople have in common is resilience. Is that ability to keep after it, to persevere, the stamina to endure, to not give up, even when you're getting just bombarded with a whole bunch of no's. Even when you can't manufacture a sale. So so here's some of the things that I've learned to do when like things are kind of going slow for me. One of them is to make a plan. Make it, it's so easy, as you said, Mike, to like get caught up in the busy work that makes you feel like you're accomplishing something, that you're doing something. But you're not doing the thing that you ought to be doing. Researchers have found that when people end their day by making a plan for tomorrow, like they get more accomplished. So what you don't want to do is let the funk of today spread into tomorrow. You got to wall that thing off and make sure it doesn't spread. You have a bad day, that's unavoidable, but you got to make sure that like just because you had a bad day today doesn't mean you're going to have a bad day tomorrow. And so making a plan for tomorrow, figuring out, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Remembering there's no substitute for activity. You got to do the work. And like making the plan to do that so that you can try to keep that funk of a bad day and that slump from spreading from day to day.
Yeah, that's such a great idea, because the idea of, like I mentioned earlier, the paralysis of what do I do now when you're in a slump is real. And I have found myself like, I just don't know what to do. I can't do anything right. And I love the idea of, okay, tomorrow, here's my plan. And at least I come in fresh. And if I can execute on that plan and get a couple of small wins, that starts to build momentum. So love that idea. What else you got?
Another one. Make some four-legged calls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a four-legged call, for those that might not know, is the the opportunity to head out and to do some calls with another salesperson. And sometimes the four-legged calls are really annoying because your sales manager sends you out. With the newbie, you've got to train, you got to get paired up with, somebody you don't like. One of my favorite episodes of The Office is the episode where all the salespeople get paired up with one another and they head out. Yeah. And oh man, it's such a fantastic episode. These four-legged calls. But here's the thing: when you're in a slump, man, there's nothing better than going out and making calls with a friend. Mike, I remember there was one time that you and I were making calls together because I don't remember which one of us was in a slump at the time.
Probably both of us.
Yeah, but we were out making calls together, and I remember we walked into a business, and the business owner like barely wanted to talk to us. I think he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I think he even cursed at us at one point. Like, he wouldn't answer our questions. It was miserable. And we walked back out to the car and we got in and we just started laughing because it was hilarious. And I remember one of the things you said is if I was out making calls on my own and I walked into that business, I would have been done for the day. Like, it would have been enough to like end my day. And so, like having somebody else to laugh with, having somebody else to just help you, not take it all too seriously, tremendously important.
And I just feel like it helps you to up your game a little bit, because you don't want to fail in front of your friend, but it also gives you a little bit more confidence, because when you and I would make calls, maybe not in that one because that guy just didn't want to talk to us, but you're able to interject. What I like making calls with you is when to interject and when to not say anything. But we had that chemistry where there was two of us, and our ability to connect with the customer really helped out. So love the four-legged calls. Yeah.
How about this one? And maybe you want to talk about it a little bit. How about connecting with a really good client?
Yeah.
Taking a really good client out to lunch.
taking them to lunch, just showing up at the business, and just if you know that they're having success because you've been in touch with them, take them to lunch, bring them some lunch, bring them something nice, go get that little win, because that is a win. It's a satisfied customer that you continue to do business with, and connecting with them is going to help you to regain some of the confidence that you might have lost, because it's going to remind you that I can do this. I have done this. I have clients that are with me now that are satisfied. So I can do this job. I just need to remind myself that I am able to do this job. And here is a perfect example of what it looks like when I do it right. So yeah, I think that's a great idea to go see them, take them to lunch, take them to dinner.
Yeah.
Listen, so maybe you just need to pick up the phone and call them and just say, hey, how are things going? And get that reassurance. Hey, Mike, I am so happy. Things are great. Thanks for checking in. And that little bit of confidence, again, it begins that wheel of momentum spinning. So now when you make your next call, you have that in the back of your head that, okay, I have satisfied clients and I can do this job.
Yeah, absolutely. So much of sales is mental. You know, it's like it's like golf. You know, golf is so much more a mental game than a physical game, and it feels to me like sales is the same way. That it's so much of it is mental, and so interacting with somebody that can give you that confidence, that can remind you, I can do this job, so important. And like the last two tips totally go along with that. One is get a good night's sleep. You know, like so much of life is being able to like recuperate, be restored, get a good night's sleep, and decompress if you need to. Take a mental health day if you need to. You know, take care of yourself. You know, have like that self-care is so important. Like there's so much pressure in sales that it's so easy to get in this like self-defeating cycle, that one of the ways you can break that cycle and kind of regain that mental edge is to just take care of yourself. Listen, you know, like the world isn't going to end if you don't make a sale today. Like the world's going to keep spinning. There's still going to be a tomorrow. Like, making a sale is important. It's not the most important thing in life. And I would agree. Yeah. So decompress, take a mental health day, take care of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's a half day, Rob, I mean, if you need to go in the morning and answer some emails, but take the afternoon for yourself. You know, it's beautiful weather here in Arkansas right now. Go for a walk. I would say go play golf. I'm terrible at golf, so that's probably not not good for me to keep going to play golf, but you know, there's something you can go find to do,
That's right.
You know? And so that mental health day, I think a lot of salespeople just kind of underestimate the power of just taking a couple of hours or a full day to recuperate and recharge and then come back fresh the next day. So great tips there.
And it's counterintuitive because you think, and this is where the desperation comes in. You think, if I'm not making sales, I gotta go, I gotta run, I gotta go. And what you end up like, almost like turning yourself into the Tasmanian devil, you know, like where you're just frantic in your hopes of accomplishing something, when maybe what you need is to like pull down, decompress, get yourself together so that you can move and act and sell with confidence and not panic.
Yeah, and desperation, like you said earlier, because desperation is basically you are trying to take that round peg and get it into a square hole. You're not really thinking about the customer's needs. You're thinking about, I need a commission check. I need to make a sale. And the customers just, it radiates off of you. And you're not, most of the time, you're not going to make that sale. And so I think taking that mental health day to just decompress and then come back with a fresh outlook on it the next day is going to help you to reset and hopefully not come off with that air of desperation that turns most customers off.
Absolutely. And remember, listen, you're in a slump. Slumps happen. Like they're to be expected. Sometimes they happen because you do something wrong or you shift things up or you get overconfident. And sometimes they just happen. There's lots of factors, changes in the market. I mean, all sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, sales is, and I read a good book once called Peaks and Valleys, and that's to me, that is what sales is all about. There's going to be the highs, there's going to be the lows, and then you're going to have those plateaus in the middle. And I think learning to manage, and I think we should talk about this in another podcast, is that, yeah, sales slumps are one thing, but when you're on fire and things are going well, how do you maintain? Because I think we've been to the top of the mountain, and it is a long fall down when you're not maintaining. So we'll have to come back to that one for sure.
Yeah,
those peaks and valleys, man.
Absolutely. But remember, this isn't going to last forever. Like, listen, it's not going to last forever. And there are days where it feels like it. I remember when I was in a sales slump, I had a playlist on Spotify that I would listen to in the car to hype myself up to be able to walk in the door at work because I was so discouraged. But it will not last forever. Like, if you persevere, if you remain resilient and keep doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, it's gonna pay off. You're gonna get that hit. You're gonna have that home run. You're gonna have that grand slam, and then you're back at it.
Yeah, so I love to go bowling. That's one of the things I do, and I can tell you when you're not hitting your line in bowling and you're not getting the strikes, it is frustrating. But it only takes one strike for you to get back into the groove. And so I like to celebrate small wins along the way when I'm in a slump. If I get somebody on the phone that I've been trying to reach for a while and they agree to take a meeting, that's a win. It's not a sale, but it's a win, right? If I get a response to an email that, hey, I'm a little bit interested, tell me more, celebrate those wins, because those wins start to add up and it really does start to push that momentum and you start to feel it. And all of a sudden you go from being in a slump to, hey, I've got 6 meetings set up. And it just takes that one win to get you started on that path of getting out of the slump. Like you said, one hit for a batter in baseball, and all of a sudden they're back to normal. They're back to getting on base and hitting home runs. So it won't last forever. So really great advice there.
Absolutely. Mike, what we want to do each week when we talk with folks is share a tip that can be put into practice today. Something that can be done right now. Sometimes it'll be a technology tool. Sometimes it'll be some scheduling thing that we've figured out. Sometimes it'll be, something as quirky as getting your own brand to wearing bow ties, like we talked about last week. Maybe a question to ask, all sorts of different things. Mike, you've got a tip today that I think is absolutely fantastic. And it's something that I watched you implement and you were blowing the doors off as a result of. So I'm really excited about you sharing this tip with folks today.
Yeah, so this is one that, I don't remember where I picked it up, but yeah, I remember it's been probably 5-6 years since I've implemented it, but it's something that has really helped it helps me to get my week started off right. And it's kind of like your idea, Rob, of putting that list together. But one of the things that I like to do on Friday afternoons, somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock, is I'm going to type up 5 prospecting emails, but I'm not going to send them. I'm going to put a delay on them, and I'm going to wait for them to go out on Monday morning. Because what I want to accomplish is I want my emails to go out first thing, be at the top of their inbox. And when I walk into the office or I sit down at my computer, if I'm working from home, I have already started on my prospecting for the week by having 5 fresh prospects with an email in front of them. And I can tell you the success rate on those emails was probably higher than any other emails I sent out, somewhere between 20 and 40%, depending on the week, of response rate. So 1 to 2 per week. And then when you multiply that, when you do that every Friday, I mean, you're talking 20, 25 emails a month that really don't take more than 15 or 20 minutes to type up. And it just gets your week off to such a great start because you have those 5 prospecting emails that are kicking you off before you do anything else in the week. So tip of the week, type up those emails on Friday afternoon, send them out first thing Monday morning. And I would love to hear from some of our listeners if that works for them. Just, comment on one of our spots and let us know.
Yeah, this is so fantastic because it's not just, okay, I'm going to do some research and come up with some prospects that maybe I'll get around to talking to on Monday, or these are the folks I want to connect with next week. No, it's actually having the email typed up and in your outbox, and whether you're using Gmail or you're using Microsoft Exchange or whatever you're using, there's a way that you can schedule emails to send. And you get it all ready to go, and depending on your business, and for us at times in the world that we lived in, folks weren't working that much on the weekends. You don't want to send an email on a prospecting email on a Friday afternoon necessarily. Now, there's other things you might want to do on Friday afternoons, like dropping in or making phone calls, but not emails, because it's so easy for them to fall to the bottom of the inbox and to be ignored, to get lost in the clutter over the weekend. So, man, setting that email to send on Monday morning, you can walk in the door Monday morning ahead of the game. Like, you walk in the door on Monday morning and you have already prospected 5 new customers. And it's not just that in your inbox, you can check and see, okay, these sent. You might have in your inbox a request for a meeting, for that week, and you're already ahead. Like, it is such a great tip. And listen, I mean, you and I haven't won every Friday afternoon we've ever had. There's been plenty of Friday afternoons where we've blown things off and sat in a cigar lounge and smoked a cigar and, complained about the week and, like all of that.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you got to do that, right? Sometimes you got to do that. But man, if you can take Friday afternoon and turn some of those prospects you didn't get to into an email that will go out immediately on Monday morning, that's winning Friday afternoon and setting yourself up to win the next week. It's such a great tip.
And what's great is it doesn't take that long. I mean, you can do it in 30 minutes. I mean, I think that would be the longest it would need to take you. And then, like you said, you walk in Monday morning and you've already started prospecting. So hopefully you'll get to implement that tip.
So fantastic. Well, listen, this has been it's been a blast, Mike. I love talking sales with you, and hopefully folks have listened to us kind of share some of the things that we've learned, shake their heads at our, in sympathy at us for the sales slumps we've been through, but hopefully kind of learned and been encouraged as salespeople that as you do this thing, man, it's hard, it's good work, but it's hard work. You got to keep at it.
And everybody goes through it. Just remember that. Everybody goes through a slump. So, Rob, great talking to you. Can't wait to do it again next week.
Listen, I want to remind everybody before we go, please subscribe. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you hit that 5-star and write a short little review, man, it makes such a difference. We would appreciate that. You can also subscribe on Spotify, Google Play, like our Facebook page, Bowtie Sales Guys on Facebook, and we would love to interact with you. And as that 4-legged call when you're out making that with the salesperson in the office that you actually like, tell them about what we're doing here, because they would like it too, and we would love to have them on board. So thank you so much for listening to us today. It was great to be with you, and remember, you got this.